Right then, hello and welcome back once again to the channel. I'm here once again with another shoe review. It's an orange box, and we all know what an orange box means. It's a Nike shoe. What is it? And here we have the Nike Zoom Air Pegasus 38. Let's get into it. So then, the Pegasus 38. Now, full disclosure before we get into it, Nike have sent me this shoe to try out. However, they will not be getting to see any of the footage or this video before I put it out. I want to put together a true and honest review. All words are my own. So, with that out of the way, let's get into the shoe. We'll just take that out to get rid of some of the weight. Now, the Nike Pegasus 38, that is 38 iterations of this shoe. So they must be doing something right to keep coming back and back and back and back and back 38 times. This is Nike's daily workhorse. It's pitched as that daily trainer, the shoe that you're going to reach to again and again for just bagging lots and lots of comfortable, easy miles. It's not a racing shoe or anything like that. It's really just your daily go-to shoe. And the pricing point is somewhere around about £105, I think. So just tipping into the £100 bracket, but probably there or thereabouts for a lot of similar shoes. And a price that the majority of people will probably be fairly happy with if they're going to be getting many miles of comfort out of a shoe. And as I say, 38 iterations of this shoe, and there's also been some spin-offs. So for example, the Nike Pegasus Turbo 2, which I had a couple of years ago. It was my first pair of Nike shoes that I ran in, and I got another pair and another pair, so 3 pairs of Pegasus Turbo 2s. They were awesome shoes, a go-to for both fast runs, longer runs, easy runs, a really great all-rounder. I did last year pick up the Pegasus Shield, the 37 Shield, for those wetter runs. Unfortunately, what I found with that shoe is the ball of my left foot around about here. Every time I ran more than sort of 5 or 6 kilometers in them, and I was doing a lot of half marathons at the time, I was getting a really nasty blood blister. It just felt a little bit too restrictive, and my foot just seemed to be rubbing against the bottom of the shoe there. So after a few runs, I ended up sending them back, which was a little bit disappointing, but there we go. Now, in terms of what's changed in the latest iteration from the Pegasus 37 to the Pegasus 38, so they've kept the same React foam midsole, but they've improved the upper. They've got this breathable mesh upper that's got a little bit more space and a wider forefoot and toe box than the previous iteration. Now, I'm wondering whether part of my problem with the blood blisters on the bottom of my left foot may have been due to a little bit of restrictiveness in the upper, causing my foot to rub underneath. So that little bit of extra space, like I said in my recent review of the Vaporfly Next% 2, that little bit of extra space in the upper, particularly for someone with my size and my width of feet, is going to be very welcome. It's hopefully going to keep me more comfortable across the duration of those longer runs as I'm just clocking up miles and miles and miles of easy miles. Now, right, in terms of the look and feel of the shoe, now as always on this channel, and I say it time and time again, I'm not going to get into loads of the technical specifications of the material of the upper, the material of the midsole, and going into tech specs about height and drop and all of that sort of good stuff. There are many other YouTubers out there that are far more technically minded than I am, so what I'm really interested in is look and feel. If the shoe looks great and if it feels and performs well during the run, then that's what is most important for me. First up, how does the shoe look? And actually, I'm really fond of this colourway. I think it's pretty awesome. You've got basically black and white, but I quite like where the white and the black contrast. And you've also got a little bit of a sort of turquoise blue stitching up the sides here. And these lace loops have got like a bluey, pinky, purple going through them. So I think the colour is actually pretty cool. You've got turquoise and black on the outsole, and you've got the silver swoosh just contrasting against the black there, and in with the white here. You've got a bit of red text on the midsole there saying that it's engineered to the exact specifications of world-class runners, Nike running. So yeah, overall, I think the shoe looks pretty good and it feels okay too. That upper does look as though it's got quite a bit of space. It's sort of folding in on itself a little bit, just at the bottom of the tongue there in the forefoot. But my wide feet will no doubt soon fill that space. The midsole, it's a React foam throughout. It feels fairly firm. Got a little bit of squishiness underfoot, but we'll see more about that when I slip the shoe on. And what you also have is some Zoom Air pods around about this area, which help to absorb the impact with your feet and give you a little bit of a push off into the next step. Nothing like a plate or a carbon fiber plate or anything like that. You're not going to be getting thrown forward and propelled into the next step like you would expect during a race or a really faster interval, but it's going to give you that little bit of energy return. It feels fairly cushioned around the ankle here and around the Achilles. The Achilles area of the shoe feels pretty well reinforced, kind of from here back over. It's a bit more firm and more sturdy. There's no pull tab or anything like that to get the shoe on. A little bit of a tab on the tongue there. And the tongue's got a little bit of cushioning in, not overly cushioned, but there's a little bit in there. The tongue is attached inside, so it's not gonna wiggle and wobble about and get uncomfortable. And the laces are fairly standard, just bog standard laces. You've got these lacing loops up the front, but you've got a double eyelet at the top for the runner's knot. Now, as always, I say it on every single video, I use the runner's knot to get a nice, secure, locked-in feel without over-tightening in all of my running shoes. It's absolute game changer. If you haven't checked out or tried the runner's knot yet, then you absolutely must. It will change your life. I'll put a video up on the screen here, a link to my runner's knot instructional video. It's a couple of minutes long, but it will show you how to put the runner's knot into a shoe. And yes, again, a really great way to get a secure, locked-in feel around the entirety of your foot without over tightening, which can cause you pain up the front of your foot here, or certainly I found that in the past. So yeah, runner's knot will be put into this before I slip them on. So what next? So the outsole, there's a pretty good coverage of outsole rubber there, and it's covering the majority of the sole. There's a little bit of exposure here in the heel, but the rubber itself runs all the way down both sides, front to back. It's thick rubber as well, and it feels pretty firm and sturdy. There's a bit of a sort of a waffle pattern in the forefoot there. The outside has got these kind of strips of rubber, but it looks as though it's going to provide plenty of grip and hopefully be long lasting too. So the thickness of that rubber looks as though it's going to last for miles and miles. The shoe looks pretty well put together. So not too much to say there. So I think what we'll do now is slip them on and see how they feel. Right then. That slipped on without any problems whatsoever. This one's a little bit tighter. Obviously pulled the laces a little hard on that side. So I've put the runner's knot in already. So all that means is I cinched my feet down, both sides, get that one tied, pull the tongue on that one, cinch them down. And that gives me a really nice, secure, locked-in fit there without any ankle slippage or anything, but also whilst remaining comfortable around the top of the laces. So then, in terms of space in the toe box, I've gone for a UK 13, which is my usual size in running shoes. I've got a nice thumbnail's width at the front of the shoe there, and I feel as though there's nice amount of space around the toe box. That mesh upper does feel pretty flexible and pretty comfortable. My toe is touching against the outside at the front of the shoe there, but it feels quite soft, so it doesn't feel as though that's going to give me any issues really during the run. Right, I'm just giving them a little bit of a bounce. And that midsole feels pretty firm. There is a little bit of a give in there as I push down on my heel. I'm a forefoot striker, so the bounciness in the heel doesn't really make much of a difference to me, but just to really test that midsole and how it's going to absorb impact as I run, The Zoom AirPods in the forefoot aren't really something that you can feel. It's just something that provides that little bit of cushioning as you come in for impact and as you're pushing off into the toe for the next stride. That's where you get that little bit of energy return. But yeah, I can't feel it as such, but I know it's there. I mean, there's not a huge amount to say really. They do feel pretty comfortable. There is just that little bit where my toe seems to be touching on the right shoe, but not on the left. So we'll see how that feels during the run anyway. But other than that, I think all that's left for me to do is to lay them out with the rest of my kit, come back to them in the morning and get them out for that first impressions run. So I will see you then. Right, so here we go then. It's an absolutely glorious day. I'm dressed like a zebra. Let's get this done. And we're off. Take it nice and easy to start with. Right, so there we have mile 1. And first things first, it feels great to be back out again. So this is my first run in 2 weeks after my left calf, the one that's been giving me a bit of an issue since January, just pulled and tweaked a little during a really easy run. So yeah, 2 weeks ago after my run, a couple of hours of sitting around, I then stood up and was met with a familiar sharp pain down the outside of that calf. The same pain that got me back in January. So rather than try and run through it like last time, I took 2 weeks off. I've been doing some strength training, strength conditioning, core, that sort of stuff, just to try and keep a bit of fitness up. But as you can probably tell by my breathing already, that fitness has dwindled just a little bit. Let's try and get through this anyway. Anyway, the shoes, first impressions straight out of the box then. And the midsole is firm, far more firm than say the Zoom X midsole of the Invincibles, which are another of Nike's sort of daily easy run shoes, albeit a much more expensive pair. But yeah, you certainly feel more of the road in the Pegasus 38. It's a nice and stable ride, so the midsole's not squishing either side of the foot as you take on some twists and turns. It feels like there's plenty of stability underfoot. The outsole, however, doesn't feel quite as grippy as I'd have hoped with that thick outsole rubber. It's ever so damp on the floor, and I'm not getting a really great grip. I mean, it's okay. I'm just a little bit conscious, ever so slightly conscious, of slight lack of grip. So coming in for 5k now, I've taken a slightly different route to normal. I fancied a little bit of off-road through the fields of the Northumberland countryside. It's not the most stable footing, lots of stones and stuff like that, maybe not the best thing to be doing trying to come back from injury, running on an uneven surface, but it's a lesson learned for tomorrow. Now that first 5 kilometers, although it may not have seemed it, was a slight uphill gradient for the whole duration. And they're not light shoes, they're not particularly heavy. Actually, I think the Zoom X Invincible is a much heavier shoe underfoot, but with that you're getting the sort of squishiness, the cushioning, and a little bit of a kickback from that Zoom X foam. Whereas in these, because they're a bit firmer underfoot, oh look at this, isn't that beautiful? Yeah, sorry, distraction. Because these are a bit firmer underfoot, you're having to work that little bit harder to pick the shoe up and put it back down with each footstep. And the balls of my feet are just a little bit conscious of the ground underneath. I think the placement of that Zoom AirPod, if that wasn't to be there, it wouldn't be all that a comfortable ride. But yeah, although it's firm, it's not that it's particularly uncomfortable. The upper feels okay, so where that toe on my right foot is touching ever so slightly towards that top end of the toe box, actually that's caused no discomfort and no issues whatsoever, so I'm not worried about that. It's that flexibility in that mesh upper, it has a little bit of give in it. Just enjoy these views for a moment. This. Beautiful.
So I've been sitting in at around about a pace of averaging 5 minutes and 10 per kilometre. So not a particularly fast pace. And one thing I'm not going to do today is to put a hard effort in. Now the reason for that, because it's my first run back after a little bit of an injury, that tweak in my calf a couple of weeks ago has knocked my confidence a bit. So what I don't want to be doing is sort of big, long, fast strides and putting unnecessary strain through that calf. So it's an easy run to start with. I will do a further update at some point where I put it through its paces a little bit more. Right, so here we come into the finish, and that is 10.5 kilometers. And that'll do for today. Right then. Oh, and that felt good to get back out and get some fresh air in the lungs again. Loved that. So the shoes. Now Nike pitched these as the everyday workhorse, right? They're your go-to shoes, day in, day out, just for bagging, nice, easy miles. They're not a racing shoe, they're not a tempo shoe, they're an everyday workhorse. So for me, that's how they felt. They weren't throwing me into the next step. I wasn't wanting to run fast in them. I was just sitting pretty, and actually towards the end of that, I picked the pace up a little bit, not a lot, to around about 4 minutes and 50 a kilometre. And they remained comfortable throughout the duration of that run. So the upper, I've got no issues where my toe was rubbing on the right foot. That flexibility of the mesh meant that there was no problems there. My left foot felt, all in all, pretty fine. So I've seen some mixed reviews. Some people seem to love the Pegasus 38, others seem to hate them. But for me, that was a fairly pleasant 53 minutes and 17 seconds. I'm looking forward to putting some more easy miles into this shoe. I will come back at some point and give a bit more of an overview at different paces. So thank you very much again for watching. Comment, like, subscribe, all of that sort of great stuff. Share this video with all of your friends and family, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Yo!